Hi everyone, this video is going to be a bit more, not ranty, but like, just kind of talking. I'll probably keep this video unedited for the most part, but I just kind of want to paint and talk about the experience of being pagan in America in 2026. So I'm kind of just painting with like more not random colors, just what I could get my hands on right now. Which is yellow, black, white, brown, green, and blue. Oh, okay. Guess that one super runny. Whatever. And then brown. Green, and blue. So I feel like in general, the stigmatism towards pagans has always been kind of negative since mostly forever. Like, most of media portrays them as kind of like evil witches, which we are technically witches, just not evil. I think that lies more with the president, but you know, whatever. I associate with like pentagrams and stuff. I even have this necklace here, which I wear. I feel like, yeah, kind of obvious. Oh yeah, these are the brushes I'll use. More, just kind of what I could get my hands on. So I think the first kind of topic I'll talk about is the stigmatism and how that kind of not really affects my life, but just kind of how it feels almost. Like, obviously being portrayed in a negative light's never good, or it doesn't feel good, but that's kind of how it'll be for the foreseeable future, especially since this, or in the current, like, government, it is mostly Christianic, or Christian. I don't know if Christianic is a word, kind of just the word I use to describe things being in the state of Christianity. But I think really most of it's kind of fear-mongering because of things being different. Or like I said earlier, how most movies and media portray being pagan as like sacrificey and stuff, which isn't true. I feel, well, that should be obvious, but you know, I don't think there's anything wrong with portraying people being bad in movies. Like, I would be hypocritical saying that we shouldn't do it to pagans, because we also do it to Christians. Like, we do it to everyone, really. I think it becomes a problem when people portray those stereotypes as being real, though, which is what most people do. They use these movies as evidence for them being like that in real life. Like, there was a movie, I think it was called The Ritual. I don't remember much about it. I never saw it, but I watched the kill count for it, and it looked like a good movie. But some people took that and used it to describe like what pagans are, which I thought was unfortunate. But you know, that's just how it's gonna be with everything. I'm trying to think of other examples. I go on Pinterest a lot, and whenever I go to like pagan dominant spaces, I'll see like Christians begging to go back to Jesus or whatever. So that's kind of unfortunate that we don't even get to have, like, safe spaces without those being invaded too. But, you know, like I said earlier, that's kind of how it's always gonna be. Even if that is unfortunate, because we can't fight back, or they'll describe us as violent. Like, we can't insult them, or they'll portray us as being rude. Like, kind of damned if we do, damned if we don't kind of thing. So I think not much you can do there, but, you know, the dog's barking. It's unfortunate, but, you know, what can you do? Let me see what else. Yeah, kind of like, this doesn't happen often in real life, but in online, if, what the hell? Oh, whatever. Oh, cause, yeah, my thumb. Like, obviously, like I was saying earlier, people don't like pagans that much because of the stereotypes they're given. Which I feel like most of the stereotypes are more like, what was the phrase? Every accusation is an admission, something like that. So I think that's kind of how it feels to see these people saying, you know, we prey on kids, like that whole thing. Then you turn around and see another priest hurt another kid, or another mass suicide was done in the Lord's name, like that kind of general thing. I don't know really where I'm going with this. Like I said, this video is kind of just more me talking and trying to improve confidence in my voice for the future. Or online, at least. I'm confident talking in real life, but for whatever reason, the second I go online, all of a sudden I just can't seem to do it. Which is unfortunate, because I talk more online than I do in real life. At least for now, because summer break. But I think, realistically, not much is gonna change. Like I was saying earlier with the current government. I think, in general, I know I was gonna say, like, you know, this is the experience of being a pagan in America, but this does kind of tie into it. You know, MAGA is kind of, all in all, a cult with how they treat Trump. So, you know, anything he says goes. And so if he says, you know, even if he isn't Christian, which realistically he's not, he's pretending to be, to get more followers, but, you know, I don't think, he even said himself, he's not heaven bound, he doesn't think he's going there. So I think, realistically, I keep saying realistically, whatever, he's just appealing to the majority in America right now. So I think when he's out, life will definitely get better, but for now I just kind of have to live life as I do, which isn't even that stressful. Like, you know, I can choose to not wear the pentagram in public, which even that doesn't net me looks. I think people just think I'm trying to be edgy, but, you know, I think kind of unfortunate how, at least from what I can see for now, pagans will never really be accepted into the wider public, which, you know, kind of sucks. Well, it doesn't kind of suck, it does suck, but, you know, not much you can do about it. And honestly, I think maybe it's not for the better, but I think it strengthens the like the pagan community, because of like we can relate to being not out, well, yeah, kind of outcast, but like just not accepted generally, I think is the better word I'm looking for. But you know, like I said earlier, not much you can do about it, except like stay strong and not hope for the best, but honestly just try to make the best of what you have, because you know, we only get one life, might as well try to make it worth it for what we have. Which is unfortunate that we have to think of it this way, but you know, like I said earlier, not much you can do, at least for now. But you know, I think that sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Man, looking for the right words is kind of hard. As you know, I can't say it's a good thing that we're not accepted, that, you know, if there was a pagan parade, say, that would immediately be metaphorically or maybe legitimately like shot down for being demonic just because they see the pentagram or the pentacle and they just associate it with, you know, the devil, which isn't really true. I guess it kind of depends on what pagan you're looking at. But even then, all of the pagans I know were like super kind, and honestly everyone I've met in the community is like some of the best people I've met, which kind of funny considering they're stereotyped to be the worst, but you know, I guess kind of just another example of why you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. And I think that is what the most of it is. Living by stereotypes is what causes people to be the most afraid, which ends with, you know, people getting hurt, people staying scared, which, you know, kind of sucks. I'm still not even an adult yet, and I'm still seeing how much pointless vitriol is going to these tiny things rather than, you know, it being net to important things, which, yeah, like I said, kind of sucks seeing everyone fighting. You know, if it were up to me, the world would have, you know, no wars, no people getting hurt, you know, but like, I know how the world works, and there's a decent chance that's never gonna happen, which sucks, but that's the way it is. I just kind of wish it didn't have to be that way. But, you know, what can you do? I don't really know where I'm going with this. Well, both my words and this painting. Kind of just drawing a ground and a sky. I don't paint that often. Usually I just paint when I'm at my grandma's because she likes to paint. So I'll just kind of paint with her. I think another thing is kind of, it doesn't matter if random people don't accept you. I think it hurts more to see people you know not accept you. Like, I'm lucky and pretty privileged to have been born into a family that accepts me for who I am. Like, I think everyone, at least my mom, dad, sister, siblings, have access to this YouTube channel. There's a decent chance that they're watching this video. I know my sister does. Yeah, good chance that a few of my family members are watching this right now. So I was privileged because I know people who they have to closet themselves because of who they are, which, you know, really sucks because I can't do much about that. You know, I can't march to their house and, you know, knock their parents down and say, hey, we'll accept them for who they are, because they still love you, but they can't express themselves around you. Like, I can't do that, which hurts my heart, but there's not much that I can do, at least right now. Luckily, you know, eventually you'll be an adult. You can do whatever you want then. But it's a shame that I can't just click a little button that makes their life better. Yeah, I think in a perfect world, no one's judged for what they're wearing, no one's judged for who they want to be, what they want to identify as. You know, there wouldn't be this big complaint about pronouns. Like, not saying pronouns are the bad thing, I mean the people who complain about them being too confusing, or that, you know, drag queens are being predators to kids, but then they'll turn a blind eye to their kid getting molested by a priest, because, you know, that's just natural. You know, it's whatever. Which also sucks to see how much kids get dragged into this. Like, hell, there's just a trans kid who just wants to live their life, but then some conservative will talk about how they're being indoctrinated, or that it's unhealthy, they shouldn't be thinking about this at that age, when, you know, it's unfortunate that, you know, the whole 41% the 41% statistic, that kind of hurt my heart when I learned about that. It's just a crazy number for something that's so preventable. I think, really, so much of this could be solved if people were just more accepting. I'm not saying, like, you know, being Christian's wrong or being more conservative is wrong. It's just, I think when taken to the extremes, it doesn't really do anything but hurt people. Like, I feel like so many people's childhoods are wasted being scared because they can't be who they want to be, and they're scared that they'll be judged for who they are. You know, kind of just hurts hearing that, but I hope one day everyone will just be happier, you know. It doesn't have to be a utopia or anything, just like a world where no one has to be closeted or scared of who they are. I think that would be nice. But for now, I don't think that's very possible with, like I keep bringing up, the current political climate kind of just keeps screwing things over. But eventually, I have hope that really just once, like, boomers are out of office, everything's gonna get so much better. Kind of just hope too that the kids of those, or of that generation, don't get, you know, overly dragged into their, you know, racist, homophobic, transphobic, anti-Semitic kind of ideals, because I don't think there's anything wrong with ideologies. It's just once it gets dragged into hurting people or hating people, that's kind of when I think the line should be drawn, because at that point, it's no longer really an ideology, it's just an excuse to hurt people. Which also really sucks. I feel like humanity in general could just do with more community. Like, alright, I'm a pretty avid Destiny 2 player. I know it's not the best game, especially with, how it just, how Bungie kind of just took it out back and shot it in the head, but the community around it's still so good. Like, I did a dungeon today, which, if you didn't know, is kind of just a 3-player activity. It's a bit harder, but just kind of like, if this is the lowest point, this is the highest point. It's like here-ish. Not terribly hard, but, hard enough that you need more experienced people to do it. So I was looking for, like, a little team. It took me, like, 15-ish minutes. People still play it a lot. But I met these 2 people today, and we did it. We ended up friending each other. And, like, sometime we're gonna play again. But it was just kind of crazy to me that, if I hadn't wanted to play that specific dungeon at that specific time, I wouldn't have met those kind of people. So I think it just shows that, like, community will always be a good thing. Which, kind of obvious, but it feels like so many people, since they have to closet themselves, they don't get to experience, like, a real community of people that they can feel safe around, which, kind of sucks. I think people should be free to make themselves whoever they want to be. It's just so many people are scared of being who they want to be because they'll be judged. Which, I think shows us a bigger problem in society over just this, like, what's the word, like, yeah, kind of blanking again. Kind of veered off course there. Anyways, back to paganism. I think being a pagan is definitely the second best choice I've made. Because it's just made my life better. Like, it's a lot less restricting for sure. I kind of self-identified as a Christian for a little bit, but really I was kind of more just agnostic. I just kind of identified as pagan Christian, because I just didn't want to be, like, harassed, so it was easier just to be like, yeah, I'm Christian, then be like, yeah, I don't really know what I am, but if I had to say I was agnostic, because then, saying you're Christian's the easiest way to avoid getting harassed by random people. But, kind of when I realized, hey, this isn't what I want to be, like, this isn't who I am, I kind of just did some soul searching, couldn't really find anything. Then I found paganism, but at the time, I was with a Christian, so I couldn't really, say I was pagan because of the stereotypes. And their church was super strict about that. Even though I wasn't Christian, I feared the tipping point would be me saying I'm pagan, so I just kind of didn't say anything. Kind of a long story after that, but I did end up being, or saying that, or just kind of publicly identifying as pagan, and I have a pagan partner now. Just pretty nice, honestly. We don't really worship the same way. I don't really worship to begin with. I don't really think either of us do. Which honestly kind of was the thing that drew me away from religion, like worship in general. I just didn't feel the need to, like, constantly thank something. Like, even when I was agnostic, I wouldn't worship, I would pray, but kind of pray for stuff I wanted over, praying because I was thankful. More or less, it was praying, not to pray, but just to kind of get the feeling of it. Not the feeling of, I don't really know where I'm going with this. Just praying to feel something, Try to get a little tree going. Yeah, I think I have no problem with, religion. I wouldn't be religious if I did, but I think people overstep boundaries easier, like, in the name of being, like, religious. Like, going back to the Pinterest pagan thing, or, like, Pinterest pages. I would go there expecting to see other pagans, but half the time it would just be users begging others to turn to Christianity, and that kind of just annoyed me. So that's also kind of what turned me away from identifying as Christian, because I just saw all that and I was like, I want to identify with this group. And I realized that I didn't, so I left. Or I stopped identifying as one. So I think after that, I got a bit confused, because I was like, what am I really? Like, am I pagan, atheist, agnostic? So I ended up just kind of being atheist for a little bit, or identifying as, not even identifying as atheist, just kind of not being anything, or just being without religion. Which honestly I'm glad I did, because then it made me explore, which was also nice, because then I just got to see other communities. Like, there's a guy on YouTube, I think Genetically Modified Skeptic, I think his name is. I go back to him a lot because I like the arguments he makes. And I just kind of like observing people's opinions. I think that's one of the best parts about being diverse, is even I'm still pagan, but I like to just see what other people do. Like, their lifestyle, just kind of like how their life works and the intricacies of it. I like to watch that because it gives me a lot of interest, which I think is good. I think, kind of just like I was saying earlier, diversity is the best part of life. Just being able to see how people think, why people think, like how people get to their conclusions, like that whole thing. I think it's nice to watch. But, with there being such freedom, you'll, of course, see people who want to get rid of the freedom of choice, or get rid of the freedom of thought there. Like, people hating on anything, really. Just using Christianity as an example, like a Christian church. Not disowning, just not liking, let's say, another religion. Using paganism as an example, because that does often happen. So, you know, the church will condemn it. Okay, that's the word I was looking for. So yeah, the church will condemn it, and the people, because they follow the faith, will just kind of blindly be like, yeah, I agree. But that ends up, you know, hurting themselves, because now they don't get the opportunity to come to their own conclusions about something, which, you know, kind of sucks. But I think having your ability to have your conclusions taken away is kind of just the worst part of, I think, anything really. Because being able to come to conclusions is kind of a freedom within itself. Like, you know, kind of duh, but because without being able to come to your own conclusions, you're kind of just forced to think how other people do, and then that just becomes a hive mind, which, you know, typically I would say isn't good. Obviously, people can think what they want, but I would say the majority of the time, just kind of blindly following anything won't lead to good endings. But again, I can't really force anyone to do anything. That's kind of not what this video is about. I just kind of want to, really the point of this video is just to improve my like online voice, because I do like making these videos. It's just I look back on them and I realize that I sound so timid, which I don't like. Kind of just training myself to be more confident, I think, is the best way to put it. So that's kind of the point of this. But yeah, I think the end goal of what I want this world to be is just freedom in general. Like, I think it's burdensome to just watch everyone hate each other for no reason other than, you know, just simple disputes. Like, especially with the way this current administration is going, kind of sucks to see, you know, just Trump saying something stupid, then everyone being like, yeah, I agree, we hate these people. But it's kind of like, yeah, you could choose to hate anyone, but is that how you want to be remembered? Like, just another hater? Like, someone who didn't do anything with their life besides spread pointless vitriol? And I think that's kind of the worst part of it, is just this, like, you know, that hatred that everyone gets, really. Well, I say everyone, I mean minorities, I think, because I'm gonna be realistic. I don't think, you know, white Christian men are complaining about being oppressed when they've pretty much had just forever to do what they want. You know, it's kind of been easygoing to be a man since forever. I don't think there's ever been a time, at least I can think of, that men have been more oppressed than their counterpart. But, you know, kind of, I keep going off course. I mean, really, I think the point of this video was to talk about being pagan in America, but I keep going off track. I think there's just so many things I want to talk about that I want to fit in this video, which is why it's 35 minutes right now. Jeez. But yeah, I think pointless hatred's gonna be the downfall of America. Like, even now, we're losing so much. Like, our allies keep, kind of disassociating with us because of how our admin acts. I think right now is the worst time to exist in America if you're not really just the one that's controlling it. But that kind of, I don't really know how to put it. Anyways, going back to paganism again, I think really what kind of drew me to it was just the freedoms that you can have. Like, there's no forcing you to worship, there's no forcing you to do anything. Really, the main rule is just kind of do as you will if it harms none. That's kind of just what I go by, which has made life definitely a lot easier, because it means I just focus on myself, live life how I see fit, and it makes me happy. Which I think is the good end goal that you should be striving for, is just being content with your life. Doesn't even have to be happy, it just can be content. I'll draw a little dragon-like thing right there. Yeah, really, I think the end goal of everyone should just be to love. Doesn't even have to be romantic, it can just be loving yourself, just being who you're satisfied. I mean, of course, there's always gonna be, bad, evil people, kind of inevitable with free will, which does suck, but it will lift you to be a better person. So, you'll look at them and think, wow, they're bad, I don't want to be them. Which I think will lead people to do better. Everyone's looking at Trump right now and being like, ooh, that's a bad guy. I don't want to be that guy. Like, no, sir. But some people look to him as a role model, which just inspires even more evil, which, a shame, but what can you do? I think just the main focus should be getting that psychopath out of office, really. But there's always going to be people who love him, always going to be people who hate him. Really, as long as he lives, kind of just division will keep spreading with America. Which is why I think it's definitely a confusing time to be a pagan, because you see all of these people claiming to just want to spread love and spread acceptance, but then you look within and you just see all this hatred that, main source is them, but then you're looked at as the bad guy just because, you wear the devil's signet on your neck, or, as a ring, maybe it's tattooed on you, who knows. Kind of just a shame in general how kind of soft they are. They see something they mildly don't like and they just freak out, which honestly is kind of funny. I got called a snowflake for thinking that trans people are human, which the fact that that's a debate still shocks me. I think kind of almost annoying, really, how they say, like, there's always two sides, but one side is arguing that some people should be seen as human, and the other side is saying that they shouldn't, or that they should be in prison because they're child predators. Then you look within and you see a bunch of child predators. I think every accusation is a deflection of what they actually are, which kind of funny in a morbid way. It's just a shame people get hurt from it. But I think, I keep saying that, then I zone out. There isn't much anyone can do right now. Well, there is a lot people can do, actually. I think that's kind of what annoys me. People can do so much, but they choose to sit back and let this evil man pretty much just reign terror over everyone. Oops. Which, you know, it's always kind of gonna be the case with politics. It really is just, I'm right. No, I'm right. You know. Which sucks, but, you know, I think hopefully maybe at some point life will get better. Who knows, really? Kind of just a bunch of doomed if we do, doomed if we don't, because people love to hate, which kind of a shame seeing all of this, because it's all just so pointless. You know, it's always just kind of looks like children arguing almost. One side saying that some group of humans shouldn't have, you know, basic human rights because of who they want to be. Other side is saying that humans are humans, but then it's seen as, you know, they're both equally bad, which, you know, how I pointed out that Trump is a pedophile in one of my shorts comments. Some guy started talking about, yeah, but the Clintons are too. What about Bill Clinton? Which, like, yeah, he is definitely a pedophile, but strange that you bring that up and then just kind of deflect off of the fact that Trump is one too. Or it's kind of just a both sides do it, but I don't want to admit that my guy is worse, which I think Trump right now is one of the biggest pedophiles to live. Which, the fact that he's our president's kind of scary, but, you know, can't get reelected again, so that's good. Of course he'll try, but, you know, I think by that point he might just die. Because, you know, he's so old. Which kind of is another scary thing in and of itself, that there's this old senile moron running the city. Not the city, the country. Which, you know, is terrifying to look at and to see how much it affects everyone's daily life, pretty much. You know, kind of just annoys me too. Like, why are we letting him get away with this? It doesn't seem to have a point, really. And kind of just letting him do it. Well, some people fight back, and I think that that's really good. But others just kind of let him get away with it because either, you know, they like his policies or they like, you know, what he does. But then you ask him to name one thing, one policy that you like that he did, and then just can't name it. Put us inside like a little cave right here. Yeah, like that. Alright, and now we're chilling. Little rock outlet. Well, I think kind of, everyone I wanted to talk about. Might make another video about how I think, for the most part, not for the most part, I think every innocent person should be treated like a human, like not being judged just because of what they are. But yeah, I think that's the painting. I don't really paint that often, so not the greatest thing ever, but I'm not too disappointed in it. Well, that's about it. See y'all.